Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Drew and Oscar and Scotty. Good to have you guys. Any announcements, go to buddyc.org. A lot of things there if you're new to the podcast. We've got some resources for you there. There's a daily devotion you can sign up for that's absolutely free and will always be free. There's a lot of other stuff there too, so take advantage of that if you're so inclined. Today we'll be talking about the 48th verse of the Tao Te Ching. As all of them, this is a good one. I've not found one yet that wasn't good. Isn't that amazing how a 2,500-year-old text can speak to us at times so clearly, but yet others, I've got friends that read this and so what of it? They don't get anything out of it. You know, I'm like, how can you not get something out of that? When it speaks to you, it speaks to you. And when it doesn't, it just doesn't. Well, let's get started. Drew, you want to read us Stephen Mitchell, please?
Sure. In the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering.
Thank you. Brian, you want to read us Derek Lynn?
Yeah, sure. Pursue knowledge, daily gain. Pursue Tao, daily loss and more loss until one reaches unattached action. With unattached action, there is nothing one cannot do. Take the world by constantly applying non-interference. The one who interferes is not qualified to take the world.
Thank you. Oscar, you have Starr, don't you? Jonathan Starr?
Yes. To become learned, gain daily. To obtain Tao, reduce daily. Reduce and reduce again until all action is reduced to non-action. Then no one is left. Nothing is done, yet nothing is left undone. One who gives freely and without attachment gets a full life in return. One who gives with the secret hope of getting is merely engaged in business. Truly, they neither give nor receive any of the treasure from this world below heaven.
Any comments starting out, guys?
I think it's beautiful. I just had a weekend with my mother-in-law and my wife and my daughter of 11, and we were at the river in the Netherlands. She lives at the river, and we were there a couple of nights, and there were those ducks from the other side of the river. They swim towards us, and my mother-in-law said, look how good nature takes care of itself. There's a big duck before the small ducks, and then there's a big duck behind. Look how good they arranged this. And then I thought, nothing is done, yet nothing is left undone. It's just all happening. Life arranges itself, and we have this strange notion that we are in charge. I think it's really beautiful. Nothing is done, yet nothing is left undone. You just let things happen without getting passive or something. There's just no ego left anymore in this. When you reach the state of this verse, non-action is not that nothing is done. Everything is done, but it arranges itself like nature.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for telling your story last week. Guys, if you didn't hear Oscar's story, it's in the prior episode to this one. So thank you. You've gotten some good feedback. It's good to get to know the folks that come regularly That was just a good opportunity. Worked out well. I know the thing in this verse that is probably picked on first by people who are just looking at this for the first time is, so you do nothing? So you don't take action? Because you could read it in such a way that that's what you would think. And Oscar touched on it. And when you read, Brian, the Derek Lynn, I've got a link in the episode notes of an online version of, I think, 9 different translations. And the Stephen Mitchell and the Derek Lynn are available to you for free. You just pull them up and you can change at the bottom which ones you want to see. My translation of Derek Lynn's, he must have updated it, because mine says, with non-action, there is nothing one cannot do. And how did you say it? It said something other than non.
Action.
I'm sorry?
With unattached.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Unattached.
See, that's it.
Yeah. To me, that says that I'm taking that next right indicated step, but I'm doing this surrendered and I'm just letting go of the outcome.
Yes.
I had an issue at work, and actually I've had several things that have happened. Like I had a machine go down at work and come home and to a broke air conditioner, and just a lot of life on life's terms. And anyway, back to the machine. It was first thing I called was a friend of mine who's in the service department at this company, and he said, well, it could be one thing, or it, depending on when it failed, it could have took out other electronic items. And I just ended up calling and scheduled for service. And anytime you have to do that kind of stuff's expensive. And 99% of the time I do these things myself. But I just didn't feel right with it. And so anyway, saying all that, I was in a lot of fear. I was like, this could be an easy fix, or this could be something that's going to cost a whole lot of money. And then I started asking why. And I was like, you know what? Just let go and let it happen. And so anyway, needless to say, the guy shows up the next day and comes into my office and he says, man, it's fixed. I'm going to hit you for an hour of labor. And I was like, I mean, the bill's still a couple $1,000s for the part and this and that. But I was like, you know what, man? Thankfully, I didn't go down that rabbit hole of destruction and this is the end of the world. So
you would have been interfering then, wouldn't you?
I'd have been interfering. Yeah.
Do you think that's why in the beginning, let's just use the Stephen Mitchell, because I know we all have that in front of us, but I do want to talk about some of this Jonathan Starr too. I like the way he says some things in here. In the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Could that mean in the pursuit of control, every day something is added so that I can interfere and control things? But in the practice of the Tao, we drop some of that need to control, need to interfere, need to manage. Less and less do you need to force things. Yes. Until finally you arrive at non-interfering action, right? Doesn't mean we don't take action. That's if I want to live compassionately toward others, that doesn't mean I do nothing. For me, that means I ask myself in situations, how can I be helpful? Now, it's interesting. I mentioned this in a study group I'm in. These folks aren't in recovery. And I made that statement about how can I be helpful? Someone responded with, how can I be helpful? I don't know what they need and they start talking about some trip around the world, just all kinds of stuff way out there. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in this moment. How can I be helpful? For example, right now, because with every interaction, we can either choose to be helpful or to try to control and interfere. And when we interfere, we're trying to push it in a particular direction. So right now I could say, what can I say that would make me sound spiritual and y'all would think I knew blah, 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 blah. Or I could say, how can I be helpful in this conversation and say something from my experience, strength, and hope that may encourage another person? How can I add to instead of how can I maneuver and control? That's another way of looking at that. Like I've said before, you can do that in any situation. You can do that in every action you take. Yeah. That's losing our ego, losing our fear. As I was talking to someone else earlier, fear of losing something I have or not getting something I want, and maneuvering so that I can pacify that fear. That's interfering action. That's forcing things. Usually because I'm afraid of something, so I'm forcing it to be trying to make it a particular way. And then the phrase, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone, doesn't mean you do nothing. It means that maybe you do no interfering. You do nothing from ego and fear. You're diminishing your fear-based decisions for more compassionate-based decisions in your everyday life. Not in the huge, we're not talking about the huge things. We're talking about everyday, your next action. I can take compassionate action going to the bathroom. I can put the lid back down. Things, just the most normal things that we do every day, we can do those from a place of fear or a place of compassion. And the place of compassion is the non-interfering action. Or the way I see it. Any comments, guys? Oscar?
Yeah, it also resonates definitely with our third step, I think. So we have a third step where we take the decision to turn our life and our will over to the higher power of our understanding. So with this decision, what do you do after this decision? What do you do? You don't have a will. You give your will and your life away to a higher power. So what do you do? And the big book says there is a program of action. So how do you get into this action? You go there without your will and your life. And then nothing is left undone. You do everything, but nothing is left undone because you're not involved anymore with your attachments, like Brian said, or with your will, your life. It's just what says stars, and then until all action is reduced to non-action, then no one is left. So that's me without my will in my life. Or with my will in my life surrendered to God, so they are still there, but they are the same as God's will. So for me, it's really the step 3 where this all starts, and then you go into it, and of course you clash, and your ego comes up, and your character defaults, and all the hassle comes up. But you can always go back. Oh wait, I made a decision in my third step. I have to get back to my decision and let it all go and let it all happen as it comes. And in this, it really resonates with me to do the next good thing that is in front of my nose. So when I go to the toilet, and it's a good thing to do something, to clean it, I don't know, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't. Just look for the next good thing in front of my nose. Yeah, something like this.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. We make that decision like you're talking about, Oscar, and then we're given an opportunity to choose to live compassionately or pacify our fear. And when we pacify our fear, then that's when we're getting involved in the action. We're interfering. Instead of when we choose love, then we start turning that is turning our will and our life over to the care of love. We stop with the contriving and the control to force an outcome, as Stephen Mitchell talks about. We quit forcing things. Then we can be, I was reminded of being that we're a human being, not a human doing. We move from doing to being. That's the non-action. We notice our life. We become almost like a third person, that we notice what's happening rather than thinking we've got to push for a particular outcome. Then we realize that our peace and joy that we're really looking for the whole time is in acceptance of the moment, not in forcing a particular outcome. Then after that, we can start to see that, oh, it doesn't matter how many zeros I have in the bank. I can be at peace. It doesn't matter situations in life. I can be at peace no matter what. Good or bad's irrelevant. Yeah. Drew?
All of that about just being at peace with what's going on, and the end of Stephen Mitchell's translation, true mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering. In terms of sobriety, what that reminds me of is how I got into addiction in the first place. Is I noticed that whatever intoxicant I was using, it took away the negative feelings, the negative emotions that I didn't want to be experiencing. So if I was afraid for some reason, or nervous, or anxious, or sad, lonely, depressed, or envious, anything, then I could just use a substance and it would go away, instead of just letting those emotions, letting those feelings, letting those thoughts exist and come and go on their own as they would anyway. I was trying to control how much they were there, how quickly I could make them go away. And then the opposite too. If I used something that made me feel good, then I wanted to keep that feeling around. I couldn't just accept having a good feeling and then letting it go on its own. I had to just keep using to keep those good feelings around, instead of just letting it go its own way. And then as time went on, I wasn't using anything anymore to feel good. It didn't feel good anymore. It was just, if I didn't use anything for, I don't know, sometimes like an hour, then lots of negative mental and physical sensations came, and I just use again to get those to go away. I couldn't accept that what might be best for me was to allow these really painful thoughts and feelings and sensations to just exist, be there, leave, and allow me the emptiness and the openness to just feel whatever comes and goes. And that's what I really gained from sobriety, is allowing what I'm feeling to exist, to notice it, investigate it. What is this telling me? And then just allow it to go on its own, make room for the next thing to pop up when it's time for something to pop up. So this verse really speaks to me. I really enjoy this one.
Thank you, Drew. You're talking about the symptoms, right? That
Yeah.
alcohol or drugs is just a symptom. It's not the real problem. The problem is we're interfering. And it's great that the steps help us, those things that concern us that we want to escape from, the steps are there to help us let those things go. That's what the steps do, so that we can better do the decision we made in the third step, turn more of our will into more of the cares of our life. Let those things go. Scotty.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I keyed in on Stephen Mitchell's word choice He says in the pursuit of knowledge, and then later says in the practice of the Tao. For me, the problem isn't the knowledge. It's not the books. It's not what I'm learning. It's not what I'm studying. It's what do I do with it? Is this information become clutter in my mind? Why am I reading this stuff? Do I read all these Tao books and practice this Zen stuff to go out into the real world to tell everyone else that they're not living correctly? That this is how you're supposed to do it. I've read the big book a couple times, and when I go into a meeting and I hear somebody say something or describe something they're doing in their own recovery, I have to bite my tongue and not say things like, oh, you're doing it wrong. The big book says to do it like this. This is how you're supposed to recover. This is what Bill Wilson says to do. And I'm interfering. I'm trying to control. When I'm pursuing knowledge, what am I trying to gain out of it? What am I trying to use it for? What am I trying to control? But if I'm reading all this information and coming to these meetings to practice the Tao, to practice these principles in all my affairs, to live a right way, to do what's right in front of me, instead of taking this information and throwing it all up on somebody else, telling them that what they're doing is wrong and that my way is better, because that is absolutely one of my character defects. So I'm glad that I get to come here and practice the Tao and not shout it at somebody else, because sometimes that's what I feel like doing.
Thanks, Scotty. Yeah, I missed that. Thank you. We move from pursuit to practice, right? So practice has to do with what we're experiencing. Hey, Scotty, have you noticed in the things that you read that you're starting to, rather than look for knowledge of the formula or look at it as you're taking a course or learning something, to looking at what's written as someone's experience, just like we hear experience in a meeting? Has that happened yet for you, or is that starting to happen? Because that's happening for me. I'm just curious.
For me, the transformation has to take place before I start. I think you and I have spoken before that I bought Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Power of Prayer. And when I checked out with it, I'm like, watch how good I'm going to get at praying. Like, I'm going to be talking like straight line to God. Like, I'm really going to kick ass at praying. So I have to take care before I get into it and make sure that I'm not like seeking something in this literature. And that kind of opens up, it's like clutter, right? If I can clear the shit out of my head, the message from the author's experience will come in. The same thing can happen in a meeting, even though maybe I don't like how you're saying something. I can relate to your experience and not compare, right? That's what we're taught in AA, is to not compare, to relate. But it's a learning process for sure for me, because I like to be the smartest guy in the room.
Of course. Yeah, I've learned in meetings that the people who I think don't have anything to offer are the people I need to listen to the most. I don't get anything from the guru. I get it from the guy's been sober a week and a half and he thinks he knows everything, but yet I hear what I need in what he says. That kind of thing. If I'm open, if I'm busy trying to interfere, that's not possible. That's good. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way, not letting them go their own way, not your way. It can't be gained by interfering. That's the change. And I really like the way Starr talked about this, Johnson Starr. One who gives freely and without attachment gets a full life in return. One who gives with the secret hope of getting is merely engaged in business. It's transactional, right? That's how I used to approach God through my belief system, was if I do these things, God would do this. It was very transactional. You'd pretend it wasn't, but it really was in my thinking, because I expected from what I was doing. Truly, they neither give nor receive. Truly, they neither give nor receive any of the treasure from this world below heaven. So with anything, and Course in Miracles talks about this, in that giving's the same as receiving. That can be hard to intuitively, that's not something that can be, I hear people sometimes talk about it intellectually and they're just parroting what they've heard. The reason it's, for me, the way I see it, the reason it's the same is because it'd be like giving myself something. If this is all one moment, one creation in this moment, it's the very same as me doing for myself. That's not giving or receiving. If I go get a cup of coffee, did I just give myself a cup of coffee or did I just receive a cup of coffee? It's the same. Doesn't matter. I don't know. That's how I was looking at it, but you guys may have a different opinion. I'd love to hear it. Oscar.
I also did Course in Miracles, and for me, that's a lesson with huge impact, that giving and receiving are one thing. And I was so used to the transaction, and when you give something, you receive something back or not. It's just how it works, I thought. And then I got these lessons, and I think it was with the simple practice. I don't know if it came from the course or I thought of it myself, but just close my eyes and give my love to anybody who pops up in my mind. And then I was filled with love. So I give my love to somebody in thoughts, and then I started practicing it in daily life. Just when I meet someone, send them my love or give them my love or be friendly. And I noticed how it's a kind of nature law, that giving and receiving. As soon as I get angry at anybody, I receive the anger. They don't receive. It doesn't matter if they receive the anger. Maybe they receive the anger, but they also give it to themselves. So if they don't receive it, they don't receive it. It's nowhere. It's just me drinking the poison when I'm angry at somebody or jealous, so it's with all emotions. When I give them away, I give them to myself. It's really one, and it's at the same moment. So it's really the same thing. Giving and receiving is the same thing. It's huge. When I thought on a spiritual level, in the sense of also with emotions or not with a money level. Of course, when I give 5,000 euros to anybody, they have 5,000 euros and they give me something in return or not. That's a transactional world. But the spiritual world, or the world with emotions, there is different laws, which I didn't learn them at school, those laws. I learned get what you want by pressure.
By forcing things.
Yeah, forcing things, yeah.
It's funny when we start living compassionately, I noticed I still expected something in return. I expected that person to be grateful. It was still a transaction. But the more I practiced, the less it became a transaction. And I'm still on that scale. I've moved I'm probably up to a C plus or B minus in that. You like that, Scotty, the way I grade myself? Yeah. Yeah, I'm B minus probably. I'm getting better with it, but it is progress, not perfection. I don't know if I'll ever get to where there's none, but sometimes I do. And the times that I do is when I do not notice that I've done it. If I do something compassionate and I just don't even realize I did it, it's just my nature coming out. Then I think that's when we're moving toward that non-transactional place. Brian?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how I used to be a master manipulator and the term covert contracts. It's, I'm doing this for you, but I'm expecting you to do this. And then when you don't, I'm going to have a resentment. And that takes up a hell of a lot of bandwidth that I don't have. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I used to have a relative. They've passed now, but if they did something for you and they wanted something done for them, they'd always remind you of what they had done for you. And they had some money, so they would like help with things or do things. And Now you remember blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to live under this thumb. So I quickly got away from that. But you knew every time they wanted to do something for you, it was so that they could call on you later. It was transactional. Their love was transactional. But they didn't know any better. So I didn't hold a resentment against them. I just tried to stay away from that. I steered clear of that opportunity to get angry and have a resentment. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I was just thinking yesterday, my friend came by and took a look at my air conditioner, and he lost his wife about a year and a half ago. And he ended up I was really thankful the way it happened, because he's a friend, and I don't like mixing friends in business. That just doesn't work. And we can be in business, or I could be your friend. And so that gets really icky to me. But anyway, saying that, he came by and took a look at my air, and it happened to be right around the time we were going to eat supper. And I told my wife, I said, look, we've got plenty of food. I said, I want to ask Charles to stay and eat. And because I knew he needed some fellowship, and it was really good to just sit down and just listen to the guy talk for an hour and a half. I know he needed that. And he's home alone now since his wife has been gone. And it just felt really clean to me. And I was happy to be able to be there for him and not have any kind of thoughts of maybe if I feed this guy, I'm somehow racking up some points or something. It just felt clean and not icky. And I was happy to be able to do that for him.
Hey, Brian, have you,
Yeah.
I don't do it as much now as I used to, but I always look for a reason behind things happening.
Yeah.
Could it be that your air conditioner broke so that you would have your friend over for dinner?
It very well could have. And I even thought when Charles left, I told him, I said, man, you need to come back over. We'll do this again. And my air doesn't have to break for you to come over for dinner. But yeah, who knows? Maybe that's it.
Could it be that if you were sensitive enough to hear that, you wouldn't need your air conditioner to break?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I'm picking, but
yeah.
I try to stay out of that, that side of things, because my mind knows. That's the interfering.
Yeah.
Trying to force an answer. But I do know that all these things can work out for us.
Yeah.
The phrase is work into something good. I don't really like to use that phrase anymore, but it can definitely work into usefulness. Usefulness. Let's say usefulness is not a good or bad. We can say usefulness. All these things can bring use. So I can see that sounds a little more acceptance for me than me pinning things on being good. It's great. Being bad, it's not good. That kind of thing. Like we're learning to live above that pendulum of back and forth. We can have peace regardless of what's going on. Flying above the storm.
Yeah. It just is.
It just is. Exactly. Yeah. Good conversation today. So the way that we allow things to let things go their own way would be like what we're told about resentment. So we pray for the person even though we think it doesn't work. And in return, we change. They don't change. It's exactly that mirror, isn't it? We get what we give every time until we finally realize that we can't be offended. Eventually, it comes to that if we stay on this path, that there's nothing to offend, because what's happening here, just like Starr said, any of the treasures of this world cannot be given or received. Now that sounds far out, but really not in the way we're talking about it. Because if it's given or received, normally it's transactional. You're thinking transaction unless you've gotten far on this path to where You're learning to do the next helpful action regardless, without a expectation of a return. Now, how about this? I just thought of this. We can expect a return for something good that we do, or a return for something negative done to us, or a return for something negative we do to somebody else. There's always a return. If we're expecting it, that's the return, not just on the good stuff. And we've learned that what we're really doing is doing good for us, or a negative something affects us, not them. Neither one's about them. It's all about us. Still, yeah. Anything else before we close, guys? I want to quote from verse 38, the very last stanza in Stephen Mitchell. It's describing this too. Therefore, the master concerns himself with the depths and not the surface, with the fruit, not the flower. He has no will of his own. He dwells in reality and lets all illusions go. That's the letting things go their own way, right? And learning that this way, that anytime we interfere, nothing is gained. What we're looking for, me, ultimately, peace and joy, does not come about by me interfering. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have a part. I notice and do what's in front of me to do, whatever that is. But if that's coming from a place of compassion or love, truly, then it's not interfering. For me, it breaks down to being helpful in this moment, with no plans of, oh, if I do this, then they might do blah, 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 and that whole plan. But how can I be helpful in this moment? Yes. Good conversation today, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else before we close? Good. Good to see you guys. Y'all have a great week. Y'all have a week full of acceptance. How about that? We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.